I think we might have Mr. Weiner now.
Oh, do we? All right. So we have Mr. Mr. Weiner.
Weiner, thank you so much. You even pronounced it right.
Yes, absolutely. Welcome to Steele and Ungar. Just to refresh everyone, he's former White House spokesman and a Democrat strategist, political commentator, and has worked in both as an aide to Ted Kennedy and worked in the Clinton and Bush administrations. Welcome. And the question that we've been sort of...
Thanks, Michael. I just want to say it's been an honor to watch you and your objectivity on TV also.
Oh, I appreciate that. And one of the things that we've been Rick and I have been going back and forth on is this call to arms through the generals. I mean, for a guy who sort of berated the generals of this nation throughout most of the campaign, Donald Trump seems to be relying fairly heavily on them. What's your take, and what does that mean?
Well, it's a little dangerous. Don't forget, General Flynn is the guy who was in the national security briefing and berated the national security advisors, broke up the meeting, said afterward that they didn't agree with Obama. That's what came out of Trump. And then now he's the national security advisor. This guy is a loose cannon. Mattis is not a loose cannon, but he's very tough. But Obama picked him for CENTCOM, for Central America.
But then he also fired him.
And yes, he's tough talk. But, there is, as you just said, there's a positive side to this guy who actually educated Trump on torture so that it doesn't necessarily work. So there's a good and bad to his picks of the generals, but Flynn is the more dangerous one, I think. He's unstable, and he doesn't understand even what security briefings mean, and he's going to be the guy sitting in them every day.
But don't you think, though, Bob, that having someone like a General Mattis over at DOD, sort of carrying the weight that he carries there. Let's say a General Petraeus comes in to the picture in some regard.
Smartest one he could pick.
Yeah. I mean, how does that offset the nervousness that many outside of, well, probably even including inside the defense community feel about Flynn? How does that offset any of that, or does it? Because you said it rightly. He's the one who's sitting the closest to the president.
I think Petraeus would, which is a little ironic, given that Trump just finished running against Hillary Clinton with Bill Clinton's problems. But right. I think that Petraeus would offset it, and I think that would be a very smart pick, even if he is on probation as he's picked for a cabinet position.
Right.
So I think that would make people, the military community. I worked directly for 4-star General Barry McCaffrey in the White House as the spokesman in the drug czar's office, and he loves Petraeus. He thinks he's the most brilliant guy out there. And he worked very closely with him. And you remember McCaffrey was the guy who led the left hook in Iraq and did that amazing thing of ending that first Iraq war in 3 days.
Yeah.
So I'm comfortable if Trump picks Petraeus, but if he's only there with Mattis, who was fired by Obama after he hired him, and Flynn, who's a loose cannon and dangerous in national security, that doesn't give me much comfort.
Interesting, Rick.
It's funny. Your assessment of the two very much matched my own. I find Mattis to be a really interesting character. How do you and I find Flynn to be terrifying. How do you appoint General Petraeus? I mean, you're just going to get creamed, aren't you, after everything that Mr. Trump said about Hillary Clinton for the same kind of a problem. How do you do it?
Are we really doing the everything Trump said and he can't do something different later? Because you'd have 150 quotes that you would have to reverse for him.
No, that's true.
Right.
That's true.
Right. That's very true.
Except
McCain's not a war hero. Hispanics are rapists. Where do we blood gushing? Where do we go with this guy's quotes during the campaign? Yeah. So, and by the way, this is an opportunity. I want to point out the exit polls show that by 63 and 61%, people didn't like Trump's temperament or his knowledge to be president. But by 83%, they wanted change. So they voted for Trump despite him.
Yeah. That's the fascinating part. And it goes to something you said earlier, Rick, about whether or not people wake up and go, wait a minute, hold on, we did what?
It's Brexit.
It's the sort of the Brexit sort of aftermath of the election and how that plays itself out, particularly given, as we've discussed on the show, Bob, what we see happening with the draining of the swamp by
it's
adding
not being
more,
drained.
right, by adding more swamp water.
Yeah,
Right.
That's what I said. He put a pipe in an old swamp, and he's running it directly to the new swamp.
Yeah.
And really, you're going to take two Goldman Sachs top people and say you're draining the swamp, the very people that caused the financial crash? You're really going to do that and had all the corruption?
Well,
and one of them directly.
Well, it's interesting, though.
Right.
I mean, you raise Goldman Sachs, but let's not forget, Goldman Sachs has always played a very interesting role in all administrations, Democrat and Republican, going back really to the 19 teens. When they've had a various, when they've left Goldman Sachs and come into government service, or that relationship between that firm and the government has been a lot closer in the past. So this is not unusual. I mean, they're just more Goldman Sachs alum and alum involved this time around. But that relationship has always kind of been a part of administrations.
That's
hasn't
true.
It? Yeah.
And that's been a serious, serious problem. I mean, that's the Elizabeth Warren, Bernie Sanders' highest point of contention, is the fact that they have those kinds of people to sort of be the regulators of the businesses. You can't do it because you got the fox guarding the chicken.
Yeah, but wouldn't it be easy? Isn't it easier for someone who has been regulated to deal with the regulations in that regard?
Well, it's not surprising from Trump, who his life is based on business. So, by the way, to tell him, give away everything that you got elected on is a little ridiculous to me, this liberal Democrat. I don't see the justification of telling him to give up all of his businesses when the law is very clear that he doesn't have to. On that one, I take issue with a lot of people. That's how he got elected, was I'm a businessman and have these businesses. So you really want him to give up his entire life?
Right.
No, that's not going to happen.
Yeah. Okay. See, I couldn't have said it any better, Rick.
Yeah, he's got a point. He's got a point, but you have to acknowledge the contact
from that liberal Democrat.
Yeah, I'm troubled by the whole thing. I totally agree what you're saying. I understand what you're saying. I also understand that it's kind of an impossible position he's in. You can't just take 100 and some buildings around the world and sell them, because you're going to
tell him to take away the name, which is what this guy's ego lived on.
Yeah, it's just not. It's not going to happen. At the same time, it does seem to me that there ought to be something clever people can work out to give
disclosure, and he refuses
maybe that's
to do it.
Yeah, maybe that's
absolutely refuses to do it. He should take the hit. Let people see that he paid zero taxes for 18 years, which is what they're going to find, and do the disclosure, and that will be the thing that lets him move forward.
So let me ask you this question: Why do you think Donald Trump is relying on these generals? What is it about? I mean, putting a general at DOD, for example, it hasn't happened in a very, very long time. Bringing these individuals who have this strong military bent, particularly when you consider his claims of not supporting the war, for example, and things like that. Why do you think he's doing it? What do you think is
Michael,
up his sleeve?
This guy is like a baby with a shiny new toy. He is playing, by the way, like he played on The Apprentice. He's doing the hire and fires the same way. But he is playing with the entire government as a new toy. And he's a guy who listens to the last person that he talked to. So he gets these generals in to do the briefings, and he's impressed by them because they actually know something that he didn't know. They know actually what happened in Iraq, what happened in Afghanistan. So they can tell him how to deal with these things. So the first part was all campaign rhetoric. Now he's actually learning how to govern, but you have to govern with people that know something, and he's impressed by them.
That's probably true. But he does have this tendency to believe whoever talked to him last, which takes us back to General Flynn.
Right.
And that is a big fear that I have, because the NSA advisor is really the person that he's probably going to be speaking to last when it comes to national security issues.
Oh, I couldn't agree with you more. That is the biggest danger we have. And by the way, what on earth is the national security briefing doing, the daily briefing, being only military things, the very first thing a president has? It so takes away his contact with the American people and what they care about in terms of the broad sweep of things and the other side of things. So that in itself is a distorter that's dangerously going to bring him more and more and more into military adventures, and that's very dangerous.
Is that yeah? What did I didn't know that he had limited his briefing. This is news to me.
No, I'm saying that's what the daily briefing is.
I see what you're saying. Okay.
Yeah,
I mean, as a White House staffer, I got the schedule every day, right? And the first briefing the president has, even Obama went more military because that's the first thing he's framed by. And then you get into what Eisenhower called the military-industrial complex.
Right.
You become part of it when that's the first thing that frames your entire way of looking at the day.
That's interesting.
But the interesting dynamic, and really, I go back to the question about why the generals, because when it's all said and done, when it comes to our national security challenges, wouldn't you agree that the president is going to need a mix of voices? Of advocates within that circle. So they got to be able to argue the diplomatic, the cultural, the economic, the entire panoply of issues that go into a country's situation or relationship that we may have in the Middle East. It's not just the military response. It's not just what a Michael Flynn may see. Let's go bang, bang, shoot him up, and then we'll sort it out later. Wouldn't you agree that that's got to be a part of this? And that's why I'm curious about these generals, because except for Mattis, who, again, I as a former, monk wannabe, I can identify with that sort of monkish style and behavior.
How many times do you hear those words?
I know, right?
As a former monk wannabe. I don't think I've ever heard that before.
Michael, you've been a lieutenant governor. You know the broad sweep of what you need to govern.
Yeah.
Trump has never done that.
Yeah.
Trump he's going to think he knows more than the generals. And unfortunately, his tweets show that he still thinks as president he's going to know more than everybody else on any subject, fill in the blank. So the problem is that he is going to do these irrational kinds of tweets. That's how he's going to be president. They can't take away. They tried in the campaign. They tried in the transition. They can't take away his tweets from him.
You know what? Go ahead.
So that's what you're going to face is the irrational having of a Steve Bannon combined with a Flynn. Those are going to be the two issues he's got, because Priebus, as you know, Michael, is more of a doer, an executor,
he's an apparatchik
make it
guy.
Happen guy.
Yeah.
So now you got Flynn and Bannon as the two key people that are going to make this guy's presidency until he does something horrible. The fear is that we do something wrong in the next Cuban Missile Crisis and make the wrong decision.
Right.
And until he does something like that, that's how he's going to listen to people.
So you know what's interesting about what you said? I don't think that the problem is that he's never done it. I think that's exactly why people put him in the job. They're sick of Washington people who have done it, and they're all perverse and corrupted. That's
why Change won by 83% of exit polls, and the Trump is inept only got 63% of the exit polls. That's right.
It's not that because he hasn't done it. I can think of a lot of people I'd be very happy to have as my president who have never been in government. It's who he is. It's the problems that we see with how his mind works and the things he says and he does. Now you're combining somebody who's never done it with the fact that he's got a scary process going on there. And that's what's frightening.
And that's what makes this so exciting.
Well, I don't want excitement when we're dealing with Iran surrounding some troops that they pick off a boat and Trump declaring war because our troops give him the finger or something. I
don't think it'll be that bad. I don't think it'll be that bad. Gentlemen, please.
I think I'm with Wiener on this one.
You guys are reminding me of that part where everybody, starts running and screaming. We're not at that stage yet.
Well, my hair's a little on fire right here. Just embers.
It's just embers.
Just embers.
What, have you been to South Carolina or Tennessee
I've been
lately?
Thinking about Trump. Embers.
Okay. All right. Well,
I think he's smarter than that, Michael and Rick.
Yes,
I do think.
That's my
I'm
point.
talking about the worst case scenario if history prevails. And everybody's been waiting for the presidential Trump to show up, and every time after 3 days goes by, he proves that it hasn't.
Well, wait, it's again, he hasn't taken the oath of office yet.
That's not going to make the difference.
But it was going to be the last weeks of the campaign. It was going to be. In the
I know.
transition.
That's why I knew you were going to say that, Bob. That's why I just sort of set that little pitch up there
it's
for
not
you.
coming that day.
No, it's not.
Thanks.
This is our president. This is our president.
Exactly.
He is a reality TV genius. He is real estate mogul. He's all these other things that we've never seen or had in a president. And adjustment is just the beginning of the words we will need to use over the next 4 years. Bob Weiner.
Obama's got to cut him. He's got to stop cutting him the slack and saying he's going to be, not an ideologue. He's going to be, whatever he said.
Well, Obama's got to be careful, too, because what Obama needs to come to appreciate is that there is an unspoken golden rule that among the class of individuals he's about to enter, again, a very unique class of living presidents, that, doth not speak too much against thy former, that current president. And I think he's got to be careful about that because the last thing he wants is to have his successor litigating his 8 years in office. And if he begins to deconstruct it, so be it. I mean, that's elections have consequences, to quote the president, Obama.
Can I take the liberty of one more point, which
Sure.
is okay? His picks on because you told me I'm coming on to talk cabinet people. His picks of Tom Price and Betsy DeVos, they scare me from a real substantive point of view because Price is Secretary of Health and wants to take away people's health and all the way that the health bill does work with 20 million people new. And the Secretary of Education wants to do everything she can to not support public education and bring kids into private schools. Those are going to be war from the Democrats. I just want to let you know that's going to be declaration of war. And Schumer said that it's going to be a declaration of war against seniors, and they're going to fight it.
Which of the two of them scares you the most?
Those two, really.
Which one of them?
Mnuchin saying, it just shows uninformed. We're going to get to 3 to 4% GDP growth. Hey, guess what? It's been 5.5% under Democrats. I did an op-ed on this. It's been 5.5% under Democrats until Obama, when he caved on tax breaks for Republicans, and 1.5% under Republicans who wanted these tax breaks for the rich. So we've been at 5.5%, and his objective is 3 to 4%. The economy is going to carry itself, and he's going to get there to that.
Well, someone noted today that Donald Trump is about to inherit the Obama boom.
Right.
And I don't know how much of that I buy because the results of this election tells me, and I think say very clearly, that there may be a boom, but it ain't in my neighborhood. It's not where I do my grocery shopping. It's not where I buy my gas, and it's certainly not where my daddy works. And I think that is the difference between what Obama has done, that 5.5% you're talking about, and the fact that most people feel like it's a percent or less. So that's something that Hillary
Clinton is pre-Obama. He never got to 5.5% GDP growth.
No, but
but what he did get to is 4.6% unemployment and gas at $2. So you should be pretty happy about that gas. And unfortunately, it's mostly fracking, but it's the price of gas. And incomes have started rising, and poverty has started reducing. There have been some, and he did save the auto industry. He has a legacy of effective things that he did, and Trump will carry them on and then claim them.
Well, as well he should. Because I'm going to tell you why. Because Barack Obama didn't have the you-know-what to do it himself. Because that has been, Rick and I, we started this show 3 years ago on that very point, that this man has the worst communication shop of any president in modern era. Cannot tell his own story.
Yep. When I cover the White House news conferences, the reporters tell me that Obama can't make the case on the health bill. It has done these things, and actually prices have gone up less than they did before Obamacare. But he's not making the point about the new people, the pre-existing conditions, and the lifetime no caps, and people get mammograms. And really, when I hosted Greg Walden, I'm the chair of the
Mm-hmm.
Republican Campaign Committee in Congress, and I hosted him at the National Press Club for a news conference. I said, what are you going to do about those provisions of the bill? You're going to kill them? He said, no, we're going to keep those. Well, you keep those? You kept the bill.
Bob Weiner, you're great, man. I'm glad you could come on today. We really, really appreciate
It's an honor
you.
to be with you guys.
I think
really-
we found a good substitute host for me when I'm out.
Yeah, I think we have to. I think
Just like we think the same.
I think Bob is going to be great. He is the president of Bob Weiner Associates and founder of a little group I'm familiar with in my home state of Maryland, this nonprofit Solutions for Change. And he's also
Thank you.
former Democrat and current Democrat strategist and political commentator and former aide to Ted Kennedy. All around good guy. Appreciate you coming on Steele and Ungar, buddy.
Thanks, Bob.
Real pleasure to be with you guys. Take care.
Take care now.